Halacha in the Rambam. Somebody who takes back his divorcee, or somebody betrothed a woman that's forbidden to him. Now, in the Peirush it says, if Kigoin, this refers to Machon Nesher HaGodol, if a Kohen Gadol betrothed a widow, a grusha b'chalutza l'kohen hedyet, or a divorcee, or a woman who has gone through the levirate divorce to a kohen hedyet, mamzeres, mamzeres, and a sino, those that are forbade to marry into the sinim, or a bas Yisrael a mamzer, a bas Yisrael to the mamzer, the reverse where the male is forbidden, or the nosen, einay choyze, does not go back because it was a forbidden betrothal. He takes back his divorcee. The Kesef Mishnah cites a Mishnah and a Bryce and Soita 43a and 44a. The Vaz gives the exact language. The Chachomim taught us. It says in Dvarim 24 verse 5, the person will take a new woman. Should not go out to war. I only know a new one, a widow and divorcee. How do I know that he goes back? It says Isha because it says woman. So it seems anyone. And therefore the question is, what does it have to say, new one? That regarding him, she's a new wife. He never lived with her. Therefore, and if she became divorced or even though she's divorced on this gauge, the Gemara concludes, this is basically the posuk comes to preclude somebody is returning his divorcee. That's not new to him because she was his wife. The Miller's Chinuch is established that by a divorcee from marriage that married and divorced, and he then went ahead and betrothed her, or he married her and she's not new to him. But if he only betrothed her and he divorced her and he went ahead and sanctified her, he goes back from the war because she was never married to him. What does it matter to me whether she was married from the first marriage, or what's the difference if he divorced her and then he remarried her and then he betrothed her again? He goes back, meaning that if he never lived with her, she's considered a new wife, even if the divorce was only from betrothal. And he cites a Beis Shmuel in Yeridea, he cites a Shulchan Aruch in Siman 546 that one can take back his divorcee from marriage even on Chol HaMoed, because it's not that great a simcha, and you don't say you don't mix simcha with simcha. But to take back a divorcee from betrothal, since it's forbidden to take back a woman, a new woman in the festival, then it would be forbidden because you ain't ma'am simcha with simcha. The Chidor says it wasn't explained if someone returns his divorcee that he doesn't go back from. It doesn't mean from the marriage or from the betrothal. He says that Halachos K'tanis cites the Mishnah. You do not marry women during the festival. The Mishnah says it's forbidden to return a divorcee from the festival on the festival, but you can return a divorcee from the betrothal. The Halachos K'tanis points out that Yerushalmi didn't make a difference between going back from war, whether it's betrothal from whether you divorce from betrothal or divorced from marriage, and therefore the Halachos K'tanis is questions if only somebody returns his divorcee from the marriage, does not go back, or even from betrothal. The Chidor infers that since the Mishnah Rambam just said Hamachzik Ushosoi, we've seen there's no difference. It doesn't state which one it is. And Yad Aaron is of the opinion that according to the Bavli, on a festival you can marry a divorcee even from betrothal, which is not as great, which is a greater simcha, even though he never married her, because any simcha gadol is not the same happiness as if he married a wife that he never had any contact with. Kiriv, and like the Rambam. Yet Aaron adds, according to the Bavli, even somebody who divorces his wife from betrothal will therefore not go back. And if he wants to marry her now, he cannot go back. He is not freed from going to war. The Chidor disagrees, and he's the opinion that according to the Rif and the Rambam, it's forbidden during a festival to return a divorcee from betrothal because he never lived with her, and it's a great simcha like a new wife. He adds further that only if he's returning his divorcee from marriage, he does not go back from war, because it says in Devarim 20 verse 7, who betrothed and did not take her and goes home, and somebody lets somebody else take her. It would seem that this reason is only by a woman that he never had a relationship with her, with a chuppah, and even if he betrothed her and he divorced her and then he gave her again betrothal, it's true that the agmas nefesh, the hurt to the woman, if the man will die and somebody else will take her, or rather to the person himself, it would seem there's a hurt. And therefore, when he takes his divorcee after he divorced her, there's a mitzvah of making his wife happy, and we only therefore exclude from the fact that it says chadosha, a divorcee from marriage that doesn't go back from war. It was overseen from Rabbeinu Yoina. And he cites the Divrei Shmuel in his Shuvas that only if he's returning a divorcee from marriage, he does not go back because of the edict in the Pasuk, and so it's in the Rebaz. Chidor concludes that only Machzik Rishosim and Asuin does not go back from, like the Hilchos Chinuch. And Halacha, the Psak Halacha, that somebody who builds a house and he did not dedicate it yet, or use it, goes back from the war. The Mishnah Melech, the beginning says, somebody had a house and he sold it and they repurchased it. It's like taking back his divorcee, and therefore he does not go back from the war. And he says it could be by a woman, it says chadosha, meaning to exclude a return of a divorcee. But by a house, there's no such minimizer, and maybe he would go back. And he remains with a question about this. The Chidor cites that they asked, it says specifically chodosh, it's like a new house, just like it says by a woman, chadosha. And he cites that in a pamphlet of his father, Mishnah Melech, he brings this question, and the brother-in-law of his father answered it after the seeing what he says. The Mishnah Melech points out that the Mishnah Soita, Mem Gimel Omed Aleph, it says, Rabbi Yehuda says, even somebody who builds a house on his place, he does not go back when the house falls down. And the Rambam writes, Allah is not like Rabbi Yehuda, and he goes back from the war. But there's no proof from this. If he sold it and he went and purchased it again, then it looks more like somebody who brings back his divorcee and he doesn't go back from the war. And he continues to question, how does the Rambam know that Tanakama disagrees on Rabbi Yehuda? When the house fell down, he rebuilt it. According to Rabbi Yehuda and the Gemara, they bring that if he added a row of stones that wasn't in the house previously, he goes back. Now, Allah is not like Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara wouldn't explain his words. And they said Yerushalmi that if he painted his house, or he made windows, or it was large, he made it small, if he goes back, according to Rabbi Yehuda, there it seems that Allah would accord with Rabbi Yehuda. Besides, also from the Yerushalmi, he built a new house. If it fell down and he rebuilt it, it's precluded. from coming back from the war. Rabbi says that somebody brings back his divorcee, he does not go back he does not return from the war. And he says he makes similar divorcee to the house. Mishla Melech still isn't sure if he sold the house and he purchased it, if it's that like returning a divorcee or not, and would he return from the war or he would not. We're continuing with Melochim Perek Zayin Halacha Ches, the Chido cites on the Mishnah in Brochus 54a. If somebody built a new house and he bought new vessels, he says Shechionu. The Rashbo cites the Yerushalmi in Brochus, the ninth Perek, Halacha Gimel. Not only new ones, even if they were just made like new. And Ivan infers that the Mishnah is talking about specifically only new ones, but new vessels that were sold and he purchased them, he doesn't make a shechionu if they were refurbished. Just like a new wife, we take away from the idea of taking back his divorcee, that he does not go back from the war because he took a new wife. That's not called a new wife. The Chidor proves from the Raivad that vessels that were sold and he went and he purchased them are considered like taking back his divorcee, and also a house that was sold and he purchased it again, he does not go back from the war. If he purchased it for the first time, it's a different story. The Chidor, on the question of the Raivad, where does the Rambam know that Allah is not like Rabbi Yehuda? Cites the Sefta. The Tanakama doesn't make it similar to a returning of his divorcee, and he disagrees on Rabbi Yehuda and Soita Perek Zayin Halacha Yud. Thus, we see according to the Chidor, if his house collapsed and he went and built it, he does go back. But if he sold his house and he repurchased it, he does not go back from the war. Chav David Pardoy cites that the Beis David and Soita on Perek Ches Mishnah Gimel questions on somebody who engages a woman. It's forbidden to him, such as a widow to a Kohen Gadol. He does not go back. It would seem that Kohen Gadol goes out to war. If he would engage a widow, he would not go back. In Halacha Hilchos Yesodei he says it's forbidden for Kohen Gadol to leave Yerushalayim. How does he come to go to war? The Shana wants to answer. It's talking about the Machon Nesher himself. He's called Kohen Gadol because he's forbidden in a widow, just like a Kohen Gadol, and all the other things that a Kohen Gadol is forbidden to them. To become Tamei to his family, and he has to marry only a Psula. Furthermore, from what he writes, a Grusha Halutza the Kohen Hadiyat, a divorcee and a woman who has been given leverage divorce to a Kohen Hadiyat, would seem like a Hanu go out to war. The question is, in Shmita Yovel, he writes with Peirush the Rambam in the 13th Perek, Halacha 12, the Shevet Levi do not go to war, and Kahanim are also called Shevet Levi. The Chidor discusses, since everyone who goes out to the Machoma would write a divorce to his wife, then a Kohen, is he allowed to divorce his wife with a condition? Because we have there's something called Rae Gann, which the Chacham forbade, and he explains that when it says they go back from the war, the wife of a widow does not cause a Kohen Gadol to go back, and divorcing is when they wanted to go to war, that even though they're not obligated to, they went and they gave a get, a divorce. But the question is, a Kohen Gadol does not leave Yerushalayim, and therefore you have to say, like the Shishanos of the David, that was talking about somebody who was anointed for Milchama. The Avnei Chayfetz, the Rabbi the Rabbi of Raisha, is of the opinion that Mosdos Mitzvah, Kahanim and Leviim do go out to war. But this doesn't explain the words of the Rambam, the Mosdos Mitzvah. There's no rule that you go back from the war. But it's Mosdos Mitzvah, everybody has to go anyway, so it doesn't help us. The Mordechai cites that they asked the Kohen can divorce his wife on a condition, and he answered he can, but You can't prove this from everyone who goes out to the war. Bostoner writes a divorce on condition. Can't go with them. But he adds that you're obligated to have a kohen that will say the words that requires the kohen to say, who is a person who is fearful and weak of heart. But in Kedushin 21b, there is a question if a kohen is mutar b'yifas Torah. Thus we see that they were kahanim in the war, and you can't say that there too is talking about by a kohen who is the one who has to call out the person who's fearful, because it could be he never went to war, he just went out to the boundaries of the war, but he didn't enter the war itself. Furthermore, in Perek Ches, Halacha Daled, Rambam codifies the Halacha that kohen is permitted to take Yifas Torah for the first relationship. Thus we find that the kohen is in the war, because Yifas Torah is only permitted to those who go to war. And you have to say the kohen could go to war if they so desire. If a kohen betrothed a woman, he goes back. But by a woman that's forbidden to him, like a divorcee or a levirate divorcee, he would not go back from the war. But the Mordechai writes, one kohen goes, it doesn't mean to the Meshur Milchama, because he's like a kohen Godel, it's also Ba'almona, but another kohen that it says, Gerush Halutza the kohen Hediot, like the Rambam in Halacha Gimel, kohen Echon says in his place. In other words, there's the one who repeats it, and therefore he comes to the war for that purpose. The Mishnah, in Soita Perek Ches, Mishnah Gimel explains that Halutza, even though it's only forbidden to the Kohen Midivrei Chachamim, it's not in the Pasuk. Teiz Yontif says maybe it's mentioned in the Mishnah since you always find these words together, but La Alocha, Halutza would not go back. But you can't explain that like in the Rambam. Therefore, he says, according to the Rambam, we're talking about Melchem's Rishus. He doesn't go back because Chalutza is forbidden to him, even though it's only Midivrei Seifrim. In the Mishnah in Soita Perek Ches, Rabbi Yossi HaGodol says that a Talmid is fearful and weak of heart, and fearful of his sins, such as an almona, a widow to a kohen Godel, which is Chalutza the kohen Hediot. Bartanur cites the Gemara. Going to Rabbi Yossi HaGodol, somebody transgresses on the rabbinicals goes back. Rabbi Yossi himself is of the opinion only with the Torah, like an almon kohen Godel, and a divorcee to a kohen Hediot. And Teiz Yontif concludes that certainly the Rambam says Chalutza only because that's the way usually you combine them together, Gerush or Chalutza, even though Gerush is deraisa and Chalutza is rabbinical. The Miller's Chinuch and the Chedushi Marich point out that, like the Teiz Yontif, Marich says that there is a way of fixing the language. Going on Akiva Eger cites the Ritva that Chalutza, even though it's rabbinical, there is something to rely on from the Torah. And he brings it from Rabbeinu Meir HaLevi. Therefore, Chalutza the Kohen is more stringent than other rabbinical, and therefore he would not go back from the war. But if it would be regular rabbinical, he would. The Marich cites Yerushalmi. If somebody married a alienalis, he doesn't go back to Melochim, because there's no mitzvah to marry her because she cannot give birth. And even though there's no sin in marrying her, it's not considered his wife to go back from the war. And he adds, certainly, if somebody takes a wife that's forbidden to him, even with a rabbanon, he wouldn't go back. It would be like Shnius La'royos. Therefore, a kohen that they gave a mekadosh chalutza, betrothed a levirate divorcee, does not go back to the Milchama because she's forbidden midivrei seifrim like the Ritva. The chalutza is more stringent, or like the Marich, that they do go back only by a woman, that there's a mitzvah to marry her. There's no mitzvah to marry a chalutza. Mamzer is seen Yisrael, Bas Yisrael, Mamzer Lenosen. In the Torah, Mamzer is forbidden to marry Bas Yisrael, and the Yisrael is forbidden. Jesus brings a machloikis if Nosen is also in the Torah with Rabbanon. As Yontif says, according to the Mishnah, Nosen is also in the Torah, and therefore the Rambam mentions the Sinim. But like he's of the opinion, like the Marich, that there's no mitzvah to take such a woman, and in Nosen there's no mitzvah because our home forbade it, and therefore would be the same as taking an islandess.